The atmosphere inside the courtroom was so thick you could almost slice through it. Every seat had been claimed, the air heavy with the warmth of bodies packed shoulder to shoulder. A faint blend of aged wood and anxious perspiration lingered in the space, adding to the claustrophobic tension. Photographers were in position, cameras poised like loaded weapons, fingers hovering above the shutter release. The faint murmur of whispers evaporated the moment the bailiff's voice called for order. Every gaze shifted toward the bench. Slowly, Diddy rose from his spot at the defense table, his palm brushing over the front of his tailored suit in a gesture that couldn't quite hide the nose beneath. His posture was upright, but the subtle rigidity in his movements gave him away. The towering, untouchable music icon who once commanded arenas and red carpets had been replaced by a smaller, quieter figure, now standing beneath harsh fluorescent lights. Across from him, the judge sat still and expressionless, eyes locked on Diddy with an unwavering stare that carried no trace of empathy. With a gesture from his attorney, Diddy stepped toward the podium, each footfall echoing across the tile like a countdown to something inevitable. His hands curled around the smooth wooden edge, its polished surface cool against his skin. Before we continue with this gripping moment, make sure to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss stories like this. Now, let's get back to the scene. The silence had deepened to the point where you could hear the rhythm of your own heartbeat. Out of the corner of his eye, Diddy caught sight of reporters, their lenses ready to catch every twitch, every subtle shift in his face. He swallowed, his Adam's apple rising and falling with effort, then risked a glance toward the gallery. Friends, family, industry figures, all watching, waiting to see if this was a day his legacy would officially crumble. Turning back, his gaze locked with the judges, and in that moment, Diddy knew this encounter would be unlike anything his legal team had rehearsed. This wasn't going to be the controlled, carefully crafted performance they had prepared for. It was about to become personal. The realization settled heavy in his chest, making each breath feel tighter, more constricted. The judge's eyes didn't move, as if stripping away every layer of Diddy's life until there was nothing left but the bare truth. Truth no lawyer, no publicist, no interview could disguise. Diddy shifted his stance, trying to adjust his grip, but his hands felt weighted, almost fused to the wood. The podium seemed to hum under his touch, every second dragging on longer than the last. He drew in a slow breath, but in the oppressive quiet, the sound seemed deafening in his own ears. Bright press lights bore into his face, revealing the faint shimmer of sweat collecting at his hairline. He glanced toward his attorney, who offered only a steady, measured nod, less comfort and more command to stand firm. Then the judge finally spoke. His voice was low, deliberate, each word carving through the silence. Mr. Combs. The name hung in the air, lingering as if weighed and measured before the next sentence. You've walked into many rooms, boardrooms, recording studios, award stages, but this is not one of those rooms. This is my court. The words were calm, even polite, but they carried an unshakable authority. Here, fame had no currency. Diddy's jaw tensed, feeling the invisible weight of the room pressing in from all sides. Strangers and familiar faces alike were silently passing judgment, their eyes locked on him. His instinct screamed to speak, to reclaim the narrative, to remind them all of who he was. But here, in this room, none of that mattered. Something in the judge's delivery warned him to hold his tongue. The silence that followed was suffocating, each click of a camera shutter ringing out with a sharpness that cut through the air. Somewhere in the back, a single call cracked the stillness like a sudden clap of thunder. Even the low hum of the air vent seemed louder, as if the room itself was amplifying every sound. The gap between the judge's last sentence and whatever was about to come next felt like the breathless pause before a storm, one that wouldn't end quietly. Diddy straightened his back, swallowing the impulse to interject. He had faced enemies, critics, and challenges before. But this was different. The man before him didn't care about awards, record sales, or net worth. And in that moment, Diddy understood. Nothing he had done, no accomplishment he could list, would protect him from what was about to land. The judge leaned back slightly, fingers interlaced in front of him, his voice cutting the air with precise, surgical clarity. 4 years, he began, speaking with a weight that carried across the room without effort. You have lived with the privileges of power, wealth, and influence. You've built an empire that has shaped music, business, and culture. He stopped deliberately, letting the silence sharpen the next blow. And yet, you have found yourself, time and again, on the wrong side of accountability. Diddy's got twisted. Each syllable landed like a dart to the places he wished the public would never see. The cameras began clicking faster, desperate to catch any crack in his armor, every twitch of his lips, every flicker of his gaze. You speak to the world about legacy, the judge went on. But a real legacy isn't forged in moments of glory. It's built in the quiet choices you make when no one is watching. And from what I've seen, Mr. Combs, the man you are offstage is nothing like the man you put in front of the spotlight. Heat rose in Diddy's chest. Instinct screamed to fight back, to list every good deed, every scholarship fund, every career he'd launched, every charity gala he'd supported. But the gravity of the bench pressed down on him, smothering any defense before it could take shape. This wasn't dialogue, it was demolition. In the seats behind him, some spectators shook their heads as though agreeing with the judgment. Others leaned forward, hungry for the next verbal strike. Diddy's eyes swept the crowd, searching for a face that might offer solidarity, but found only a wall of expectant eyes waiting for his composure to crack. The judge leaned in slightly. The problem, Mr. Combs, is that men in your position often believe they are untouchable. That rules bend for them. That consequences are for other people. That's not how it works here. His voice carried a finality that made the room shrink, the air feel heavier. Diddy's grip on the podium tightened, his knuckles pale. He had been the most powerful man in countless rooms. But here, power didn't belong to him, and the man behind the bench had no intention of letting him leave untouched. The judge's eyes stayed locked on him, unblinking, the gaze cutting through every layer of composure Diddy still had. The stillness in the room made the next words feel even more loaded when they finally came. "You've stood before millions and spoken about responsibility," he said evenly. "You've told them that success is built on discipline, respect, and knowing your worth. And yet here you are, standing in front of me, facing evidence and accusations that say otherwise." Diddy's jaw flexed, his body shifting slightly as the echo of the judge's voice filled the high walls. Every word was designed to strip away the icon and leave only the man, exposed, vulnerable, and answerable. Somewhere in the back, a pen tapped rhythmically against a notebook, a jarring beat in an otherwise frozen room. "You know the power you hold," the judge continued, leaning forward. "And yet you wielded it recklessly, as if your name, your bank account, and your fame could shield you from the same laws everyone else lives by." The pause that followed was heavy. But there is no separate court for the powerful, no alternate justice for the wealthy. Not here, not in my courtroom. Diddy's eyes shifted toward the jury box, even though their role was long over. It wasn't about them anymore. This was about the reckoning happening right there, under the unblinking gaze of the one voice that mattered, and that voice had already decided he wouldn't walk away unscarred. It wasn't about the jury anymore. It was about the man in the robe, expression carved in stone since the first gavel strike. The heat from the spotlight burned against Diddy's face, yet from a bench came a cold that seemed to seep into his bones. A punishing mix of fire and ice, trapping him between two worlds. The gallery stirred as the judge's voice sliced through the air. "When the public sees you," he said, "they see influence, someone who can inspire or destroy with a single sentence. And when you abuse that power, you don't just fail yourself, you fail everyone who ever believed in you." Diddy's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, to defend himself before the narrative locked into place. But one look into the judge's eyes told him the truth. Saying a word now would be suicide. His fingers clenched the podium, holding on as if it could steady him against the weight of the words crashing down. He inhaled, lips parting, arguments forming. But before they could escape, the judge's hand shot up, palm out like a wall. "Don't." The judge said, the single word slamming into Diddy harder than any insult. "You will speak when I say you do. Until then, you listen." The control shift hit him like a punch. He was used to steering conversations, dictating the tempo, bending a room to his rhythm. Not here. Here. The air felt heavy, the walls closer, the space itself reminding him this was not his stage. The judge leaned forward. His voice was lower now, but sharpened to a blade. "I've seen men in your position before. They smile for cameras while leaving damage behind. They charm crowds, then walk away as if the laws don't apply to them. And when they end up here, they stand right where you're standing, swearing they've been misunderstood. The press lights seem hotter now, beads of sweat forming at Diddy's temple. His grip on the podium tightened. You've had years to make different choices, the judge continued. Opportunities most people would kill for. But instead of setting an example, you let arrogance lead. You gamble with your reputation, your integrity, and the public's trust. And now you want me to believe you've changed because you're standing here out of options. Silence. The only sound was the slow click of a camera somewhere in the back. Each flash felt like another crack in the image he had built for decades. This wasn't dialogue. It was demolition. The judge let the quiet stretch, not because he needed time, but because he wanted Diddy to feel it. That unbearable stillness where your own heartbeat sounds like it's echoing off the walls. The pause worked. Diddy's shoulders tensed, his breathing shallowed. Finally, the judge spoke again, slower, heavier. You've built a life where people tell you what you want to hear, where your mistakes are buried, your wrongs excused, your image protected. But here, he gestured around the courtroom. There's no protection, no spin, no shield. There's only the record, and the record tells a very different story than the one you've been selling. Diddy swallowed hard. His mouth felt dry, his mind racing for a line, anything, that wouldn't sound like an excuse. But the judge's tone wasn't leaving room for conversation. It locked him in place. You talk about the man you are now, the judge said, leaning forward slightly, but you forget the man you've been. And I don't just mean the headlines. I mean the choices, the arrogance, the way you walk through this world believing the rules were never meant for you. From the corner of his eye, Diddy caught a reporter scribbling furiously, their pen carving this moment into history. The cameras flashed again, searing his face into the public record. The judge's voice hardened. Let me make one thing perfectly clear. This is not a place where charm works. This is not a place where your past glory buys you a discount on justice. And I am not impressed by what you've done outside this courtroom. What matters is what's in front of me right now. And it's not pretty. Diddy's grip tightened around the podium, the wood biting into his palms. Powerlessness was not a feeling he knew well, but here it was all-consuming. The judge adjusted his glasses, eyes never leaving him. The motion was small but deliberate, the kind of move made before a knockout punch. You know what makes this worse, Mr. Combs, the judge said, voice low and unshakable. You're not ignorant. You know exactly what you're doing when you cross the line. You know the impact. And yet, again and again, you choose to do it anyway. A ripple of murmurs passed through the gallery before the bailiff's glare shut it down. The weight of the accusation pressed into Diddy's chest. It wasn't just what was being said. It was a certainty in the way it was delivered. You've stood on stages telling the world you're a role model. The judge went on, tone tightening. But when no one's watching, you act in ways that betray every word of that image. And you've done it so many times. Mr. Combs, it's hard to believe you ever meant them at all. He crept up Diddy's neck, not from anger, but humiliation. Every camera seemed to zoom in, waiting for the exact second his composure cracked. His jaw stayed tight, but his eyes betrayed him, flicking to the floor for a fraction too long. The judge caught it instantly. That's the problem, isn't it? He pressed. When you can't look someone in the eye while they tell you the truth, it means you already know it's true. You've built a life where you can out-talk, outspend, or outmaneuver anyone who challenges you. But in here, you don't get to walk away. You don't control the story. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was charged. The kind of silence that warned everyone in the room that something irreversible was about to happen. The judge leaned in, elbows resting on the bench, eyes narrowing like the air before a lightning strike. His voice dropped into a slow, deliberate rhythm, each word hitting like a hammer. You came in here thinking your name, your reputation, your career might give you an edge. Let me make this perfectly clear. He paused. The quiet stretched until it was almost unbearable. You think you're untouchable? Not in my court. Not today. Not ever. No shouting. No theatrics. Just cold, precise authority. Diddy's lips parted as if to respond, but nothing came. This seat I occupy, the judge continued, is not for sale. It's not for rent. And it's not here to validate the myths you've built about yourself. I am here to apply the law not to cater to ego. And the law doesn't bend for you. It never has. And as long as I sit here, it never will. Gasps rolled through the gallery like a wave, chased by the relentless staccato of camera shutters, each click desperate to capture history in the making. This wasn't just a legal boundary being drawn. It was personal. A public dismantling, the kind that would haunt Diddy long after he stepped outside these walls. He stood frozen, the judge's word pressing down on his chest like an iron beam. The lights from the press pit burned hotter now, each flash a reminder that this moment, this humiliation, was being preserved from every angle, forever. The judge leaned back, eyes locked, voice steady. You may have convinced millions outside that you answer to no one. But in here, you answer to me. And today, you will answer fully. The final word landed with more force than any gavel. Diddy didn't move. Couldn't. The power in the room had shifted completely. For the first time in years, he wasn't the one in control. He was the one on display, stripped bare with nowhere to run. Silence hung in the air like a weight no one could lift. His grip on the podium slackened, fingers numb. From the back, a single camera flashed at the side of his face, freezing an expression that said it all: shock, humiliation, and the dawning realization that no charm, no strategy, could undo what had just been done. This wasn't a legal blow. It was a public unmasking, and the world had front row seats. The judge, satisfied, no longer looked at him. He didn't need to. The damage had been delivered. The bailiff shifted, a silent cue the session was ending. Diddy's eyes scanned the gallery. Faces stared back with pity, disappointment, and quiet judgment. Somewhere in that sea, he thought he recognized someone, but their expression was unreadable. We are adjourned. The gavel cracked like a gunshot, the sound echoing inside Diddy's chest. He flinched, not from fear, but from the finality. No more arguments. No more stage. No more control. The bailiff approached. Diddy stepped back, each movement slow, not from choice but from the weight of years, mistakes, and the false belief he could always talk his way out. The side door loomed, narrow and unwelcoming. Just before crossing it, he glanced back. The judge's bench was empty. The gallery still watched. And in that single moment, Diddy understood. Silence had replaced whatever words he thought might save him. The door shut behind him with a heavy, final echo. It didn't just end the hearing. It ended the illusion that he could leave this courtroom as the same man who had walked in.